Good afternoon and welcome to NYCLA's complimentary webinar, SBA Financial Resources for Solo Practitioners and Small Firms, presented by the U.S. Small Business Administration's New York District Director, Beth Goldberg, and New York District Deputy Director, John Mallano. Our webinar will begin shortly. Welcome to today's complimentary NYCLA webinar. Before we welcome our presenters, a few housekeeping notes. Due to the extraordinary number of participants on today's webinar, not everyone will have access to the Q&A console to ask a question. If you do not see the Q&A console on your screen and your question is not answered during the session or the subsequent Q&A, please email questions for our presenters directly to us at membership@nycla.org. We will forward all additional questions on to our presenters, as well as any we did not have time to respond to live, and will post the responses on our website. We will notify all participants when this information is available. Now I'd like to introduce today's speakers from the U.S. Small Business Administration, New York District Director Beth Goldberg and New York District Deputy Director John Mallano. Welcome, Beth, and welcome, John.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
So we're happy to be here. John and I are happy to be here with you today. This is an unprecedented situation in our nation's history that all 50 states and our territories have been declared a national disaster. While we understand that there are many people that are confused, have questions, are concerned about the programs that have been put forth for financial relief in the CARES Act, hopefully we can answer your questions. The SBA in 14 days did more lending than it has done in the past 14 years. Many of you may know we are the smallest cabinet level agency of the United States government, and we have been given a huge task to help our 30 million small businesses get through the next few months of the pandemic. As of when we ran out of money last Thursday, the records are still coming in, but 1.7 million small businesses were approved for loans by over 5,000 lending institutions nationally. For those of you that were able to secure a commitment under the PPP, I just want to tell you that the rules have not yet been promulgated for the loan forgiveness. So it's very important that you stay in touch with your banks and know exactly what you will need to provide them at the end of the 8-week period so that your loans can be forgiven. And for those of you that are wondering about the legislation that was passed yesterday by the Senate and is yet to be passed by Congress and signed by the President, John and I have no knowledge about that, and we cannot yet speak about that appropriation and if there'll be anything different. So today what we hope to do is to help you prepare for the funding that Congress hopefully will appropriate in the very near future, and provide you with some resources where you can go for help. Two of the major areas where you can get aid with your applications or refer your clients to are the small business development centers, which are operated on our college campuses who have business advisors, and SCORE, which is our volunteer network. Both we will provide you the links for both, and you can set up a virtual meeting with a business advisor for free who can review your paperwork, your financial statements, and get you ready for the next rounds of funding. With that, before we take questions, John, please, if I missed anything, let our audience know.
So the only other thing I'd like to say is we do have some other resource partners you can reach out to. You can reach out to our women's business centers, and also you can reach out to our veterans business outreach centers for help also prepare you for the next round of funding.
Okay, so with that, Tony, we'll take questions.
Okay, we have a question. Does the 500 employee threshold include employees outside of the United States?
No, only employees inside the United States are eligible for the head count toward the 500 employees.
Also, just to add on to that, you can use the alternative size standard for to see whether or not you qualify under that option also if your organization does have more than 500 employees.
Okay, second question. Can a receipt of PPP funds by nonprofits trigger a single audit?
You're talking about by the IRS? I have no knowledge of that.
No.
Okay.
Same here.
Question. I filled out the Chase Bank registration online about 10 days ago. They said do not call or visit. They sent me no acknowledgement I had registered. How do I find out if I am in queue for being sent their application and to be processed?
So there's some roadblocks that a lot of financial institutions have put on our program. Unfortunately, that wasn't in the legislation, but they did choose to do so. So what I can tell you is this. There's a couple of things you could do. First of all, I would continue to find out from your lender what the status is of your application. Unfortunately, they're the only ones who can give you that information. We can't do that. But if you do look to go outside of your normal lender, you can go to sba.gov/paycheck protection. If you put your zip code in there, that'll give you a list of eligible PPP lenders that you can reach out to. But understand that we really don't know what the program will be in the future. So so you can only really, if you've previously applied, you can only go to the lender that you've applied with, because other lenders, I'm not sure what other institutions are doing. Some are, some aren't. They may or may not be collecting applications and putting in a queue. We, as an agency, we do not have a queue. So I would recommend that you continue to reach out to your lender and find out the status of your application.
Another question. May one apply for PPP as well as SBA loans?
I don't know if they're referring to the EIDL or our traditional SBA loans. The general rule that you should think about is if you're making any loan application, the use of proceeds should be different for those loan applications. You cannot get money for the same thing under two separate loan programs. So with the Paycheck Protection Program is, 75% for payroll. You may want to seek another type of loan for your rent, mortgage insurance, mortgage interest, working capital, inventory. You may want to seek a different loan for that than the Paycheck Protection Programs. Most of the bank's resources at this time are going toward the Paycheck Protection Program, but you should, of course, check with them to see whether or not they're doing 7A and 504 lending, as well as their normal capital lines. I've been anecdotally going on different bank websites and help, to see what they're doing. And some banks are offering their own loans. So, there's a world of information out there. You need to explore what other lenders are doing. So, yes, there's nothing that prohibits them from making more than one loan application, but you can only draw down one loan for the same use of proceeds. Close one loan. John, you have anything to add to that?
So anyway, that's 100% right. You can't use the funds. You can't use the idle funds and the PPP funds for the same purpose. It has to be for two separate purposes. But, there is also an SBA Express bridge loan for those people out there who are waiting for their idle loan to get approved. This loan is up to $25,000. The program runs all the way through till September 13th. And you can repay your idle loan with you can repay the SBA Express bridge loan with your idle funds after you get approved from them. That's another option you have.
Okay, next question. What about the EIDL grants?
So in the legislation, the EIDL advance could turn into a grant up to $10,000. And because of the oversubscription for those funds, they were at limited to $1,000 per employee that your business was applying for, with a maximum of $10,000. Again, John and I can only share with you what we hear from, our clients who come back and talk to us. Some people have already received that money. Many did not receive it in the 3 days, but they have started to receive the money. Many people have said they have gotten an email. Some people said they just got the money, and some people got both emails and money. So they're processing it, but much slower than anticipated.
If you are a solo practitioner and apply for the PPP, can you still apply for unemployment?
So first of all, let me just mention that we don't work for the Department of Labor, and we're not experts when it comes to unemployment. But so you really would have to check with the Department of Labor on that. But from what I understood and from what I know from different seminars that I've been on, if you're collecting unemployment, you can't apply for the PP loan and apply for unemployment. But again, remember, we're not experts on unemployment. So you'd have to check with your state unemployment office to make sure that I'm correct about that.
Right, and if I could just add, I think people have gone on unemployment, and then the PPP comes back and they get rehired. The point of the PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program, is to keep yourself up and operational for the period of 8 weeks that the program runs for. And we need to, from the seminars that I've been on, I don't think that you can collect both. But again, you have to check with the New York State Unemployment Insurance Agency.
Is the economic disaster relief loan advanced reduced to $1,000 per employee?
Well, it's not a reduction. So what happened is this: there was a limited amount of funds in the EIDL advance program. So in order to get those funds out to as many businesses as possible, they came up with a formula of $1,000 per employee up to a max of $10,000. So there was no reduction. It was just a way to get as much EIDL advance, which is actually grant money, out to small business, to as many as possible. And it was a way to get some dollars to as many small businesses who have applied as possible.
We are a small 3-partner LLP. We applied for PPP on 4/6 and were funded on 4/16. When we applied, it was unclear what we should do with our K-1 income. After we filed, the guidelines came out that K-1 partners should include their income in the application. Now that we applied and were funded, what do we do now to receive PPP funds for our K-1 income?
Well, you can only get one PPP loan per business. That's the way the legislation was written. Whether or not it'll change in the additional guidance, I can't tell you. As for the K-1 income, the only K-1 income that is eligible would be K-1 income that was set up on line 14, which is self-employment income. And you would have to have filed a Schedule C for those dollars to be eligible. And that would not be the partnership that would be filing for that Schedule C income. Each individual recipient of the K-1 who files a Schedule C would file a separate PPP loan. So in essence, what will happen is you would file for your payroll through the partnership, and then each individual recipient that files a Schedule C is eligible to file for the PPP loan. So if they did receive income that flowed through to individual tax returns to Schedule C, they can apply in the next round if the rules stay the same. Understand that we do not have guidelines on the rules on how they will be in the future.
Next question. I realize that one can only receive one loan, but is there any reason why an application can only be made to more than one lender?
Now, they can apply to as many lenders as they choose, but when somebody goes to register that PPP loan into the SBA system, anyone that goes to register a second one will be canceled. So people should really think about who they want to move forward with. Before they make multiple applications. They should discuss with as many lenders as they want, their needs, or try to figure out, there were many new lenders that were added to were given delegated authority to lend under this program, and they're seeking new customers. So again, I'm finding the easiest way to find out that sort of information is to go online and read their section on PPP. But they won't have a choice if that's what someone is thinking. Like, I'll apply, just use the big name banks. I'll apply to TD, I'll apply to Chase, I'll apply to Citibank. When I get 3 offers, I'll decide what will happen. There won't be 3 offers forthcoming.
Next question. Is there a collateral requirement for an SBA EIDL loan?
I don't, John, I believe there's a personal guarantee on 200,000 and above, but John, do you know what the collateral requirement is?
Sure. So you can up to $25,000. You don't need any collateral at all. If it's over $25,000, SBA will will ask if there's collateral available. They will collateralize the loan with that collateral. Now, understand something, that we don't need first position on the collateral. So it could be second, third, fourth position. That's not the point. And if there is no collateral, that's not a reason for denial. The only time there may be a reason for denial is if there's collateral available and you refuse to pledge it.
What is available for a solo practitioner that has no employees?
So if they file a Schedule C, sole proprietorship, they can use that Schedule C. Again, it has to be a 2019. So even if you haven't filed your taxes yet, you need to prepare the 2019 Schedule C, and you could submit that.
How is payroll history calculated if your company is a multi-partner LLC?
Well, the payroll is calculated through your previous 12 months. You would take the average for the 12 months and come up with a monthly number, and you'd multiply that by 2.5. But again, we're talking about information on previous PPP loan applications. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the same for the future.
We received a loan. Can we use up to 25% for our rent and expect to have that amount and the rest used for salaries, health insurance premiums forgiven?
So the purpose of the loan, first of all, is you should be using it as much as possible towards payroll. That's why it's called the Paycheck Protection Program. They just happen to put in the 25% rule, and it's not really a 25% rule. What the rule actually is that you have to use at least 75% of the loan proceeds towards payroll. You're also supposed to have substantially the same head count as you had previously. You really should, the money should initially be used to go to payroll and pay that first. And if there's any dollars left over, then those dollars can be used for rent, mortgage interest, or past due utility expenses. So it's not necessarily that 25% is allocated to that.
Right, and it can't be more than 25% allocated to other than payroll if they're interested in loan forgiveness. If people use it go over that ratio, 75%, 25%, the PPP will be turned into a loan. There'll be 6 months forgiveness, a 24-month, they'll have 18 months left to pay back at 1% the loan that wasn't forgiven.
Next question, it's a little lengthy, so I'll try to be as clear as possible. We are confused by the comment regarding the EIDL limitation of $1,000 per employee up to a total of $10,000. We had understood, as had several CPA firms doing advising on this subject, that the EIDL grant was not tied to the number of employees, but rather to the business as a whole. I am a solo practitioner with 0 employees, except for myself, not technically an employee. Am I not eligible? I and other solo practitioners understood that we are eligible. Can you please advise?
Sure. So again, it wasn't necessarily, so we determined a way afterwards on how to get the dollars out to as many small businesses as possible, as I said before. So we came up with a formula, and when I say we, the agency with the administrator came up with a formula that they would give up to $10,000, and the form would be $1,000 per employee up to 10,000. Now, if you have 0 employees, we will give you $1,000 of idle advance. That's just a termination that the agency made.
Okay.
And just, the only advice that people should be listening to is advice from the SBA. I know that's a hard thing to hear. I myself have a brother who has a master's in tax law, took a course at the AICPA, and was discussing this with me. And something that he mentioned to me was blatantly wrong. And he told me that it couldn't be because it came from this course he took. And even though I'm his little sister, I don't know if he still thinks I'm in 3rd grade, but I do run the nation's largest office. And I said to him, he should heed my advice. It's whatever is on the SBA's website as far as facts and information is the only thing that someone can rely on. And there are many scammers out there right now. They are using, websites as close to SBA.com and SBA.org, and that is not the SBA. And people will, if you just do a Google search, you will find, people promoting loans that are not our loans. So again, you have to be very careful. I want to caution you that the only thing that you can really trust is the information on SBA.gov. SBA.gov. You can find the lenders that we've approved on there by zip code and information and facts about the lending programs.
Recent guidance says that each partner in an LLP shall include her income on the LLP's PPP application. What if the LLP is not an income-sharing partnership, but only an expense-sharing partnership, so the partner gets no income from the partnership? Should each partner file her own PPP application in that case?
So, this all depends. It's hard for us to look at the financial statements, right? Whether they're getting a Schedule C, a W-2, a 1099, Schedule E. So what we know is that W-2 employees, K-1s that have the business income in line 14, and the same EIN number should be part of the same package. If you're a 1099 employee, that means you have an independent business, you're making your income independent, and then you need to file on your own. I'm not sure, I'm not sure myself, I'm not an accountant, what an expense-only partnership is, but since it's the Paycheck Protection Program, we're looking for where that income is coming from. I don't want to use the word salary, whatever your income is, annual income is, and where that's coming from. This is why it's important to go seek advice from a business advisor that's part of the SBA family at a small business development center, a women's business center, SCORE, or Veterans Outreach Center, because they have the same facts and rules, and they can look at your financials, which John and I can't see right now, and we don't actually do that. But they can go over and help you understand how best to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. And they will be updated as we will be updated when the new, I'm going to be optimistic and say when the new legislation is passed and signed.
So also, let me the other thing too is that when it comes to expenses, the Paycheck Protection Program wasn't really used to pay for, like I said before, for expenses that are unable to be met due to the coronavirus pandemic. But they should be applying for the EIDL loan, and that's where they can get help on their expenses.
Good point. Thank you.
Next question. After the 8 weeks from the start of our loan ends, is it okay to reduce hours to put employees on the shared unemployment program?
Well, again, like I said before, we're not unemployment experts, so I can't answer that question. I would assume that they're eligible again if you let them go, you furlough them, or so again,
Right.
they would have to reach out to their state unemployment office to get that answer.
But also, if we're just sharing what we know. If you remember when I opened my remarks, we haven't seen the guidance on what the loan forgiveness is going to look like and what the bank or your lending institution, credit union, other type of lender that's participating is going to need to certify in order for you to get that loan forgiveness. So there are, I's to dot and T's to cross, and we haven't seen anything about what happens after this 8-week period and then you furlough people. So you have to keep up on those rules and regs.
If one gets a PP loan or an EIDL advance, does it apply only to payroll paid subsequent to the date of receiving that loan, or can prior wages be applicable? What if I furlough employees for them to apply for unemployment while I am waiting to see if I get a PPP loan or an EIDL advance?
So I think they were asking, and I'm not sure, and maybe you could clarify, but I think they were asking when they should be calling back their employees if they were already unemployed. And the answer is that once you make a disbursement on the PPP loan, you're supposed to call them back within a reasonable amount of time. So you should be discussing that also with your lender when you get your when the loan is distributed, and to find out when you should be calling back your employees. What I've heard, and it's not in black and white, so most people have called them back within a week or 10 days, and that's what I've heard that other lenders have been advising the businesses who have been receiving the loans. But there's nothing in black and white about that. The only thing it requires is that you do call back your employees back in a reasonable amount of time.
Right, and as we enter May, the 8-week period is going for the use of the proceeds is going to shorten because the money has to be used by June 30th.
If I am a solo practitioner with no employees, am I correct to understand that I can receive a $1,000 from EIDL funds?
That's for the EIDL advance funds. You can apply for the EIDL loan for unmet obligations for the rest of it. But for the EIDL advance, correct. If you're a sole practitioner and you have 0 employees and no payroll, you can get a $1,000 advance if you're eligible for it.
You previously mentioned where on your website to find small lenders. Could you mention that website again, as the larger lenders have not been responsive or they've put up roadblocks to obtaining a loan?
Sure. So if you go to, this is the best way I find to get it. You go to SBA, you do a search, SBA, Paycheck Protection Program, finds a lender, and that will open it up. And check the web address that it's sba.gov when it comes up. And that'll take you to this map of the United States in a little box with the zip code. And then you put in the zip codes that you're searching for. And you can expand that as large as you like. So did you just pop that up?
Yeah, I see it.
I did.
Right. So put in your zip code if you want and hit search. And there you go. And if you open up when you open up one of these, or if you scroll down a little more, Tony, you see it's coming up with 95,000 lenders, you could keep making, you know, a larger and larger network. So, you know, here we're seeing on the screen some large banks, and then we're seeing Apple Bank, which is a regional bank. I haven't looked to see what they said, but maybe they're looking for new depositors, right? Do one more and let's see what happens. Please. So here's an interesting, you know, here's First National Bank of Long Island popped up. I guess they have an office in 1007. So you'll get a variety of lenders. I don't know if you open now, if you open one of these arrows, go to one of the smaller ones. Let's see what first, okay. So it doesn't actually have, does it have the website? Go ahead. Yep, visit the website, and then you see under this little box that has the coronavirus, their coronavirus program. So that's it. Now we understand, let me share with you before, and again, I'm hedging my statement. Right before the congressional appropriation ran out of money for SBA, there were a bunch of online lenders that were approved, but I don't believe ever got to do any loans. So the four that come to top of my mind were Square, Intuit, Cabbage, and it's not PayPal, it's
Lendio.
okay. So there were several of them, but they haven't been added yet into our links. But there are several of them that have become lenders. Again, John and I have no idea whether they're going to participate in the next round of funding, but hopefully we'll have more information on that after the president signs this bill. And again, I'm being optimistic. So that was great. If you just go to, Tony, if you want to go to SBA.gov Paycheck Protection Program, you'll see a different site. Are you still there, Tony?
Yes, and typing.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know if I was like talking to myself. So SBA.gov /Paycheck Protection Program. I thought it was great that you could show that. So you see here, it's under content. There's the notice of lapse, who can apply, loan details and forgiveness, lender forms and guidance. So you can get the information. And this is, again, when you go and look at the web address, it's SBA.gov. And that website's available 24/7. And there's under this is the EIDL loans and the SBA Express Bridge loan. And then for the last one that says SBA in the blue box, debt relief, for those of you that may have either a microloan through one of SBA's not-for-profit lenders like Axion or Renaissance, have a 504 loan or a 7A loan, the last bill that was passed gave 6 months of a waiver of interest in principal payments, that the SBA are making 6 months of payments on those loans on your behalf.
Okay, next question. How will SBA PPP loans be treated for essential businesses that are currently operational? Are these businesses eligible for loans? Are they also eligible for forgiveness?
So yes, they're eligible for the loans if they applied and got approved, and they're eligible for the loan forgiveness as long as, you know, they dot their I's and cross their T's.
Okay. Per Beth's comment, is a Schedule C 2019 required, even if only prepared but not yet filed by a solo practitioner in connection with a request for an EIDL grant?
Yes,
Uh,
so you have to have a Schedule C. You have to submit the Schedule C to your lender, whether or not your 2019 return was filed.
How does PPP apply to a one-member S corporation with a payroll to its only member?
So whoever is on payroll would be eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. That person, that would be your month, whatever your monthly payroll expense is times 2.5, and that person, it could be the business owner, is eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program.
Right, so if they get a W-2 or they're doing a Schedule C, you would take the annual income divided by the annual net income divided by 12 and then multiply by 2.5. Again, I want to highly recommend talking to a business advisor, because John and I, are not seeing any of the details of your financial statements or tax returns at this point.
And again, like I said before, we don't know if the rules will be the same in the second round. So this is just going on what happened in the previous round. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the same.
Correct, but just to, espouse on that, it's always good practice to have as much information as you can available about what happened to your business in 2019, and have these forms ready in case they're needed, for the next rounds of appropriations.
Next question, if you received a partial payment under EIDL, $2,000, are you still able to receive the remainder of the $10,000?
So I assume what they got was the idle advance portion. And yes, the idle advance portion went out first, and you are still being considered for the rest of your idle loan.
Right, but I heard that's just asking about the advance. Am I right, Tony?
Yeah, I'll read the question again. If you received a partial payment under the EIDL of $2,000, are you still able to receive the remainder of the $10,000?
So the loan is up to $10,000. So if you got $2,000, that's all you'll be receiving. So it wasn't a $10,000 grant. It was a grant of up to $10,000.
On a PPP loan application by a new corporation formed in late 2019 that only has a fourth quarter 941 payroll record and January and February 2020 payroll available, will that be sufficient for the PPP employer payroll confirmation?
It should be, as long as you had to be in business on February 15th, no later than February 15th, 2020. So that is something, I would prepare everything and have an average. I would see if what the average monthly was in 2019 and in the first 2 months, and discuss that with your lender. If it's a stable number of employees, it shouldn't really have varied that much.
Next question. I applied for an EIDL on April 7th. I never received a confirmation email and I have not been able to check on the status. Is there a way to check on one's application? Or is it possible I have not successfully completed the application?
So when you applied, you should have generated a confirmation number. If you didn't get a confirmation number, I'm assuming that, and this is just something that you didn't fill it out correctly or you didn't fill it out completely. The other thing I could tell you is they should also be checking their junk email, because some of those confirmation numbers did go to their junk email. But I will give you an 800 number. Now, let me tell you, you can check on your idle loan at this 800 number, but I'm going to qualify that with telling you that we did get over 4 million applications on this, and they are still trying to sort out through the applications, and you may not get an update on it. And that number is 800-659-2955. But if you successfully put in an idle application, you should have received an email with a confirmation number.
So that phone number that John gave you is the only phone number for EIDL. And we want to tell everyone that they have put 7,000 people at that call center, and there's probably still a wait of up to 2 hours. So, and the number is 24/7. So I had somebody tell me, I had someone tell me that they were number 1693, and it took them 1 hour and 2 minutes to get through. So call when you have some time or you're doing something else and you can leave your phone off, be able to hang on.
So another thing that's a good tip is if you call during on-peak hours, your call is usually there's a little bit less of a wait time. So remember that 800 number is 24/7. So during on-peak hours, if you're somebody who stays up all night, you may want to try then.
Okay, next question. I'm a solo practitioner with no employees. Can I use a loan for non-business expenses, e.g. medical bills, given my lack of income? And if so, what loan shall I apply for? And is any part of a loan like that forgiven?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes. It's kind of packed. I am a solo practitioner with no employees. Can I use a loan for non-business expenses, such as medical bills, given my lack of income? And if so, what kind of loan shall I apply for? And would any of that loan be forgiven?
So the use of proceeds for the Paycheck Protection Program is pretty clear. It's only a few items are eligible. It includes payroll, health insurance, retirement benefits. In New York City, the sick leave policies and accrued vacations, stuff like that, that are required by city law. Either rent or interest on mortgage expenses, either rent or interest on a mortgage, not the principal, and utilities. So the answer basically seems like that individual needs a personal loan, but it's not anything that meets the business criteria of either an idle loan or a paycheck protection loan.
Next question. For employers who use professional employer organizations, PEOs, and don't have 941 forms, can someone submit payroll records instead?
So I'm not sure what those organizations are, but I mean, people have used
ADP would be one.
ADP or paychecks.com or whatever. And I have heard that they have submitted those as their payroll records.
And also, just to add, most of those services already are prepared for this. So most of them already have a portal usually where you could download records right away that the banks will accept.
Okay, Beth, there's a follow-up to a question you previously answered. In answering my previous question, Beth referred to February 15th, 2020. What is the significance of that date? Corporation was formed late fourth quarter 2019 and has a partial fourth quarter payroll and a payroll for Jan-Feb. Please clarify.
So if you were in business on February 16th, you're not eligible to apply. If you started your business on February 16th, you had to be in business no later than February 15th. There are many businesses that are seasonal businesses, and they have to use, the summary of several months for payroll. So this business was in business during the fourth quarter of 2019, so they should have some type of way of averaging their monthly payroll that existed.
So also, just so you know, if you look at the paycheck protection application under the instructions on Form 2483, there is an alternative method for new businesses. And for new businesses, their average monthly payroll may be calculating using the period from January 1st, 2020 to February 29th, 2020, and they can use that as their monthly payroll. And so if you look at the back of the form, there's specific guidance for new businesses.
Thank you, John.
Okay, next question. On a paycheck protection program, I own a single member LLC. My employees are on W-2s. I take a draw, and I am listed as a sole proprietor with a Schedule C. Is my draw eligible for the loan, and is my draw forgivable?
So they're reporting themselves as, I'm not sure, what, as a sole proprietor with employees?
Well, let me reread that for you. On a paycheck protection program, I own a single member LLC. My employees are on W-2s. I take a draw, and I am listed as a sole proprietor with a Schedule C. Is my draw eligible for the loan, and is my draw forgivable?
So your employees that are on payroll, the business would apply for the paycheck protection program for your employees, because those people are on your 940 and your 941s. As for income that you report on your Schedule C, you would be reporting that, and that would also be forgivable, but you would have to show the source of income to your lender. But again, like I said, we're really getting into the weeds on things that we have no idea if the current legislation is going to be the same.
Right. So usually a good, rule of thumb, and this again is general, and seek advice from one of the business advisors, is it's one EIN number, and I assume the sole proprietor is reporting this under one social security number. So that's, if you're trying to think of yourself, what your company, and, I'm using air quotes, think of your reporting as the one, the one entity, let's use that as a word, that's applying for one loan.
So could we just take one more question, because Beth and I have another call right after that, if you don't mind?
Okay. Can I apply with a bank outside of a state where my company is currently located
Yes.
and incorporated?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So New York is being, they're on a non-pandemic, life that prior to February, many banks from around the country finance businesses in the New York district office area, and that's perfectly okay to seek a bank outside the borders of the New York district office and where your business is, if they're willing to finance you.
Can I ask you to once more repeat the phone number for folks to call to follow up? I believe it was on the EIDL.
Sure. I'm sorry, Beth. That number is 800-659-2955. Also, they can go to sba.gov/ coronavirus. You can get information there on all our programs. And if you're looking for a specific eligible PPP lender, you can go to sba.gov/paycheck protection.
Thank you both so much. And that will conclude our webcast for today. Thank you to Beth and to John and to Matthew Coleman, who helped us put this together for our members and other lawyers in the New York City area. Please remember, if you have questions that weren't answered during the Q&A, that you can forward messages to us for our presenters at membership@NYCLA.org. A recording of this webinar will be available on demand in our COVID-19 Resource Center in about 24 hours. Thank you all for attending. Stay safe, stay home, and be well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.